What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Infamous Ghost Money, and in this video, we're gonna look into a check fraud ring that was busted in Providence, Rhode Island, that used social media to recruit people to carry out bank fraud on their accounts in an attempt to steal over $500,000 between January 2020 and April 2021. We're gonna take a look into how their schemes operated and how people who commit check fraud are impacted, and finally, how their operation got shut down. So if you find any value in the video, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to catch more of my content on financial fraud and how to stay one step ahead of these fraudsters. Alright, let's get right into the information. For as long as checks have been around, fraudsters have been finding ways to use them to steal money from individuals and businesses. The reason for this is, check fraud is incredibly easy due to the way check clearing and bank systems are designed, and also how simple it is for anyone to create a check right from the comfort of the trap with minimal tech skills. For more information on how check fraud works, check out the video I made on the topic where I go into more detail. But no matter what system or processes banks put in place, as long as that paper check exists, there's potential for a scammer to use it in an attempt to steal your money. Which leads us to today's case. June 1st, 2021, Terrence Richardson, aka T-Bone Jew Heard, and Richard Cowboy, aka Sonny Boy Taylor of Providence, Rhode Island, were indicted for allegedly leading schemes to create and deposit counterfeit business and personal checks and quickly withdraw the funds before banks caught on that the checks were created using stolen bank information. Their fraud operation would further unravel on November 22nd, 2021, when it was discovered that several other people took part in the operation, bringing it to a total of 11 members, 3 of them being bank employees for Santander and Citizens Bank. Now, I don't think there's anything a check fraudster loves more than having an employee on the inside providing them with work, and this is for 3 key reasons. First, obviously, these employees have an endless supply of A1 work that could be stolen with relative ease thanks to all the smart technology we have nowadays. Next, they are able to have direct access to account balances, which is critical in knowing how much a fraudster could cash out for before the account is tapped out. And finally, these insiders are able to review the history of these accounts, which allows the fraudster to have an idea of what check numbers to use, what amounts are aligned with the account holder's check writing history to avoid setting off any flags, and lastly, they could also be the eyes inside the bank for the fraudsters and quarterback the entire play, which makes cashing out easier once the check clears compared to doing smaller withdrawals at the ATM. Personally, it makes no sense to me why a bank employee would get involved in these schemes since they are working decent jobs, and doing fraud doesn't give you a 401k and health benefits. I'm just saying. Also, I ain't no cybersecurity expert, but these institutions have systems in place that allow them to pull up employee activity by the second, which makes it extremely easy for the institution to connect the dots on the back end once they have a feeling something is up. But that fast money was calling because these young ladies allegedly ignored all of that and still got themselves involved in doing bank fraud. According to the indictments filed against these employees, they did things such as provide guidance and advice to the fraudsters on how to successfully pull off their schemes. They stole bank information from customers whose accounts they accessed throughout the course of their workday. Also, they would steal customer information by taking pictures of the screen and send it directly to the fraudsters. And they would also assist in directly completing the fraud transactions themselves. Talk about employees of the month. The next component of Richardson and Cowboy's scheme involved using social media to recruit participants who were eager for money. The indictment calls out many of these conversations that they had with these people who hit them up online, such as this conversation Cowboy had with a recruit on October 30th, 2020, where he breaks down how the scheme operates.
Okay, so what I do is simple. I want you to know what I do isn't legal, but it's safe. This isn't saying where you have to worry about the cops or your bank and your credit. I do business with individuals who have good history with their banks. I make typed up or written checks from offshore 300k plus accounts. That typed up or written check will be made out to you where you would then deposit it into your account. Usually it takes 1 to 2 business days the most for the money to be available. Once the account shows that the money is there, we will then take the steps needed to take the money out the account. We will then split 50-50, no middleman or bad blood. You will still be able to use and keep your account as well as do it again in the future if you please. Now let's eat.
Many of the participants were all the way with it and seemed not to care about the repercussions, such as this conversation Richardson would have with a recruit over Facebook on October 1st, 2019, where the recruit mentions he recently wrote some bad checks against his account, but he was still willing to give it a shot at dropping some fake checks. Now, once they connected with a recruit online, they would then meet up with them in person and collect their debit cards, PIN number, and online banking login info, which would allow them to deposit the checks via mobile deposit. What these participants aren't aware of, or don't give a damn about at least, is the consequences of doing check fraud, even if you are not the mastermind. First, you are destroying your banking history by dropping fake checks in your account. The bank will eventually catch on that the check is no good, and you will be on the hook for paying that money back. The fraudsters who got you wrapped up in doing this nonsense will be long gone, leaving you to hold the bag. The indictment shares a conversation an upset recruit had with Richardson on September 28, 2020 about getting his debit card back after he got his account burned due to fraud. And Richardson makes it very clear that homeboy ain't getting nothing back. Hold up, who you fucking up? Fuck I gotta lie about? Bring my shit back. My account is all fucked up for nothing. You don't bring my shit back, you gonna see me point blank. I ain't no kid, I'm a grown ass man, player. I kept my word and did everything that you asked of me. But hold on. Who you fucking up is what I'm asking. You wanna meet me? Yeah, come get it. The indictment calls out after this conversation, Richardson would send the individual a picture of his debit card with a gun on top of it, telling him to come and get it. Sheesh. Next, you gotta worry about check systems. To put it simply, check system tracks all the activity related to bank accounts, and this history is reviewed by nearly every major bank you may consider doing business with. So by dropping fake checks in your account, you will eventually have fraud all over your banking history, which will cause banks to not want to open accounts for you, and this will remain on your profile for 5 to 7 years. I've met several people who made the bad decision to do bank fraud, and many years later they regret it when they get a regular job and they are unable to set up a bank account or have a regular debit card, because no bank is comfortable doing business with someone who committed check fraud. Third, fraud is a real slippery slope and it is unsustainable, especially check fraud. These fraudsters are living a life in constant paranoia that the feds will be knocking on their door at any moment. They are always looking for ways to hide their dirty money, or they further implicate themselves by trying to clean it through money laundering. Since their financial history is usually trash, they must do things in other people's name because scamming ain't no real job. So it will be hard to rent an apartment or finance a car or a home. Really, anything related to your finances will have to be ran through another individual. And finally, these recruits are potentially getting themselves involved in fraud conspiracies, which can easily get them wrapped up in a fraud case. Because no matter how small your contribution is to the scheme, as long as you took part in it, you could potentially be fair game to get hit with a fraud charge. And trust me, the feds have mastered cracking these fraud cases. When it came to Cowboy and Richardson, the feds used multiple angles to uncover their fraud operation. Many people who use their accounts for check fraud may feel since check fraud is so rampant, they will never be investigated. And this may be true, but those who are investigated usually are quick to give up the names of the people who put them on. And that is exactly what happened in this situation. According to the indictment, several of the recruits that were investigated identified Richardson and Cowboy's social media profiles, which led the feds to investigate their pages, further exposing their scheme. From this point, the feds would proceed to conduct surveillance on Richardson and Cowboy, straight down to pinpointing the exact location of their cell phones in order to confirm their places of residence. Them little boys is not playing, y'all. Also, like many other check fraudsters, these gentlemen will also do fraud on their own accounts and pull up to the ATMs to withdraw cash with all their jewels on. And I guess they felt it was a good idea to pull up like complete hot boys while cashing out. Yeah, that wouldn't raise any red flags. Totally normal, right? The indictment calls out both men were captured on ATM surveillance cashing out, and the feds were able to identify them by their jewelry that they also flexed and posted on their social media pages. And finally, the indictment calls out that Cowboy would further incriminate himself when he would set up an account with Newport Bank on June 9th, 2020, using his personal information to receive over $5,000 in fraudulent Massachusetts unemployment benefits between July 6th to July 30th, 2020. The bank would reach out to him on July 27th to question him regarding the suspicious transactions, and Cowboy would tell them that the transactions, which were titled MADUA MAPUA Programs CARES Act, which is an acronym for Massachusetts Department of Unemployment Assistance, were payments from his sister, Ma Dua Ma Pao. Unfortunately for him, the bank didn't believe it. I'm mad. He really thought he was going to get away with that amazing lie he came up with. With all that being said, Richardson would eventually plead guilty to conspiracy to commit bank fraud and 12 counts of bank fraud on March 24th, 2022, and is scheduled to be sentenced on June 21st, 2022. And Cowboy would follow suit on April 27th, 2022, when he also pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit bank fraud, 10 counts of bank fraud, and being a felon in possession of a firearm, and is scheduled to be sentenced on July 26, 2022. So we would need to wait and see how much time the judge feels is appropriate for the crimes these men committed. But there you have it, folks. That's the video on T-Bone, you heard, and Sonny Boy Taylor's check fraud operation. I hope you found some value in the video. If you did, as always, remember to hit that like button and leave a comment with your thoughts on how they did their thing. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch more of my content on financial fraud and how to stay one step ahead of these fraudsters. Alright, peace.